Most of us know Donkey Kong as the platformer games from the Country series. However, Donkey Kong began as a trilogy of 8-bit arcade games designed by the legendary Shigeru Miyamoto, creator of Zelda and the Mario Bros. Series. These games, however, were not only the first appearance of Donkey Kong, but also the first appearance of Mario as well, although he's known as Jumpman in this entry. See, this was a new idea at the time, would eventually birth the entire genre of the side-scrolling platformers. The impact that this game had for getting Nintendo on their feet after the colossal failure of games like Radar Scope cannot be understated. Super Mario Bros., arguably the most premier and recognized video game franchise of all time, technically began here. Nintendo's iconic mascot was born. It launched Miyamoto's career and propelled Nintendo to save video games as we know them. This is one of the most important games of all time, and only in recent years I feel it's gotten the recognition that it deserves, through movies like King of Kong. The story of Donkey Kong, while simple, is vastly important. Donkey Kong snatches Pauline, that's not Peach by the way, and Mario, or Jumpman as it were, and he needs to save his girl. It's not revolutionary or deep, but it's a driving force to the entire experience of the game, and it's integrated to make the player feel the actual motivation to play. The story and character of Donkey Kong was actually inspired by King Kong. Nintendo was actually sued by Universal, only to win due to Universal actually not even owning the rights to King Kong, as they'd proved in a court case a decade earlier. The settlement also got Nintendo out of their debt, and Universal ended up creating LJN to get into the video game market. Anyways, back to the game. The gameplay in Donkey Kong is the essence of a classic arcade game. There are enemies ranging from fireballs to barrels and springs which cannot be simply jumped over like in the later Mario games, but can be jumped over for points. There are also hammers, which Smash players will realize actually came from this game, that allow Mario temporary invincibility and the ability to smash barrels and fireballs. Mario can also take falling damage, so it's necessary to time the angle of the jumps properly. Certain items of Pauline, such as umbrellas and purses, can be obtained for extra points as well. The game is separated into 3 stages for the NES port, the 4th stage, the Cement Factory, being excluded for memory limitations. Donkey Kong was a launch title, or a black box game as they call it on the NES, so this is understandable. The first stage is a construction site, which is apt because Mario is actually a carpenter in this game. The level consists of ladders set up to scale the 5 slanted platforms. To your left in the start is an oil barrel that spawns fireballs. As you climb the ladders, Donkey Kong will throw down barrels that are set to randomly fall down ladders or roll to the end of each of the platforms. 2 hammers are placed in this stage to help with the barrels. The stage is pretty easy with practice. The objective is to jump the barrels and make it to the top. Stage 2 is known as the elevator stage, and it's set up with platforms, ladders, and a system of rising and falling platforms. It is necessary to take your time on these jumps, as they can crush you at the top, and there's a fireball on the next platform that moves sporadically. Once you reach the right side of the screen, you'll have to time your climbing to dodge the spring that moves very quickly, which can prove to be quite difficult, especially when you reach the top where it's very easy to fuck up and die. All you have to do is watch the pattern and stand in one of the very few safe spots, and then time your ladder climb to advance. Stage 3 is vastly more simple. The objective is no longer to get to the top, but instead to dodge the fireballs and jump over the pegs holding up the structure of the floors together to topple Donkey Kong and win the game. The hammers make a return here, and it's not too hard. Mario controls very slow here, but fairly. It feels a lot like Simon Belmont in the early Castlevania titles, where jumping needs to be planned out really well. It's learn or be killed, 3 lives, and no continues. The jump is fine because it was obviously intentional. The controls aren't bad either, they're just different. They're excellently integrated with the level design to add just enough challenge to the game. The game isn't exactly insanely hard to beat, like most NES games, it just takes some time and practice. To master this game takes a lifetime though. Playing for points in Donkey Kong is a complicated art beyond my interests in this game. After 22 levels of repeated gameplay, which ends the arcade version, but only the most elite of players have ever seen it. But the short 5 to 10 minute length really makes this a game that's fun every time you play it. Overall, most people would call this game a masterpiece, or would at least recognize its innovations. While short due to its arcade gameplay, it revolutionized the entire video game industry. It put Nintendo and Shigeru Miyamoto on the map, and it created the platforming genre as well as Mario, and innovated the use of story in video games to give the player a connection to the events they were playing through. It's one of the most important games of all time, with an addicting, simple to beat, and hard to master style of gameplay, and it's got very nice graphics and sound for its time. It's a 10 out of 10 game in terms of impact and fair critical reception, but it's not my favorite game ever or anything. I can appreciate and maybe even love what it's done and how fun it is, but personally, I'd give it more like an 8 out of 10 in terms of everything else. Take that at face value though, that's just an opinion. Donkey Kong is a fantastic game that pioneered the entire industry we have right now. With the immense success of Donkey Kong, a sequel seemed like a natural step. Thus Nintendo and Miyamoto created and released 1 year later, Donkey Kong Jr. This game is also hailed as a classic. While not innovating quite as much as his predecessor, it advanced the plot with a twist that most gamers forget. Mario was actually the villain in this game, getting his revenge for the events of the first game. This time Donkey Kong was locked up in a cage, and it's up to DK Jr., his son, to save him. Interestingly enough, Cranky Kong of the Country series was said to be the original Donkey Kong from the original series, but now much older. Donkey Kong Jr., however, would fade into obscurity for a newer Donkey Kong, which was actually his son. The gameplay of this entry changes things quite a bit with the vine climbing aspects that made the game less about the platforming and more about the dodging enemies. You can use the fruits on the ladders to hit the enemies that are below you, but the timing can be pretty tricky. The choppers can also climb the vines, which could really throw you off, but other than that, the enemies aren't as challenging here. In this regard, the gameplay is a lot more simple, but more challenging in some other aspects like the platforming. The 4 levels are all present here, which makes this an arcade-perfect port. Each level is very similar to one another, feeling very jungle-like, until Stage 3 becomes more of like a metallic power factory, and Stage 4 is an open area. The objective is to reach the top again, other than in Stage 4 where you have to lift the 6 keys into the locks, and then get to the top of the vines to free Donkey Kong. Dodging enemies isn't too hard, but again it takes some practice. It's all about the pattern recognition. The hardest parts are the platforming segments in Stage 2, because the timing is key to not fall to your death. The falling damage is a lot more noticeable here due to the level design. Overall though, the gameplay is a solid diversion from the first game. In the end, it's really a preference sort of thing. A lot of people like Junior's style of gameplay a lot better, but some people like the variety and tight platforming of the original. With the new ideas of the vines and the challenging platforming, interesting enemies, and a new spin on attacking, this game is a very different experience with a lot of similar aspects. It's really up to you which one's better. Personally, I really do like this game, and actually I have some nostalgia for it. Believe it or not, for some reason I was a big fan of the ill-fated e-reader for the Game Boy Advance. I only had a few Pokemon games and a Donkey Kong Jr. card. So I used to play this game on the playground as a kid. Pretty funny, actually. Well, obviously critically, this game is another 10 out of 10, but personally for me, I'm giving it about a 7.4 out of 10. I like it a fair amount, but the first one is always going to be more classic to me personally. The Donkey Kong Classics card is a compilation of Donkey Kong and its sequel, Donkey Kong Jr., which was released for the NES in 1988. Both are straight ports on a single cart, but it's a lot more affordable at about $15 to the $40 each that you would pay for the original black box versions. It's a perfect compilation of the two. If you want to play these games, that's how I recommend you play them. Often seen as the black sheep of the Donkey Kong Trilogy, the third entry is not a bad one. The radically different shooter gameplay likely threw off the general gaming and arcade crowd for a loop. Thinking back though, Nintendo was always an innovative company, and they were always creating new and exciting projects. They took a risk with Donkey Kong 3. I wish today's developers would have a quarter of the balls Nintendo had to release something that shook it up so much. Most see this as a mistake, but looking at the game removed from the shadows of its predecessors, it actually stands as a fun, solid arcade experience. The objective is to shoot Donkey Kong to the top of the screen while avoiding bugs. The bugs steal the player's plans, and if all are taken, you lose a life. It all balances out to a pretty intense and action-packed game. Do you have time to shoot DK a little higher? Or maybe you need to kill the bugs? Or maybe you just need to protect your plants a little longer? Juggling these aspects can be tricky, but once DK is high enough, a power-up to your weapon drops, and it makes it more powerful, and also makes it shoot with a longer range. This will even progress with you one level, and it makes all the difference sometimes. If all the plants are saved, you get a huge point bonus. Points are useful to nab extra lives at every 50,000 of them. It's a very good use of risk and reward, as well as a sense of progression. Overall, this is a solid title for some arcade-style fun. It's tense yet satisfying, definitely the most underrated of the Donkey Kong games. Personally, I'd give it about a 7 out of 10. And, you know, there's the other one too, the math game, you know. But it's rare and expensive, as well as just pretty much being an over-glorified calculator. So, you know, I don't really need to talk about that one. And I really don't need to do the math to know it's pretty abysmal. But, you know, maybe I'll go into it at a later date. So, the trilogy as a whole just screams that early arcade vibe. They definitely fit well as solid NES games too. They shine with the origins of platforming and show the evolution that the Mario series would hit it off big with. This is the sort of reverence I have as a huge NES fan for these innovative, fun, expertly crafted titles. While Donkey Kong would go on to star in a plethora of other games, none of them will ever have quite the impact made by the original Donkey Kong Trilogy. Thanks for watching. Here's an excellent video about the court case I mentioned by the gaming historian. And if you want more of me, here's my other series of reviews. Wow, I finally hit 50 subscribers. Thank you guys so much for your loyalty. Don't forget to keep it classic and stick around for more reviews of underrated games. See ya!